Welcome, future masters. This is part 2. We're going to do intermediate to hard problems with working on categorization of tactics, visualization, and pattern recognition. So make sure you have something to write with and a piece of paper to write on so you can write down these themes of the patterns and tactics that we're going to be looking at. This will help you get an idea of the things you have been studying. So here I have two bishops that are really doing work against his two knights. Or actually, both of his knights are pinned. So we have rook takes knight check. And then, it seems to be pretty basic stuff. Rook takes knight check. It's forcing king to c1. I can just play rook retreats back to d4, checking him for the bishop, but I see this guy has a problem. Okay, can't do that. But we have the temporary ability. We can play rook takes knight check, king c1, and then bishop takes bishop. Pawn takes bishop. Okay, and we can just play rook comes over here. That's fantastic. Goodbye, bishop. The only threat he has right now is bishop takes bishop, and then our rook loses his protection. Okay, that was actually winning. These guys are cheap, which I don't like. All right, this guy's going to get destroyed by a sacrifice. We're going to play queen g4 check. And rook takes h2, basically regardless of what he does. Watch this. I'm just going to ladder mate this guy. His turtle goes behind the shell of the pawn. If he went to f2, I'm going to destroy him with rook here as checkmate. This is destruction, literally called a destruction sacrifice. Notice these pieces do nothing to defend his king. Nothing, 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 nothing. He's got 4 nothings. He's threatening the queen with a hideous check. Who cares? You're dead. This is a ladder mate. This is just a whoops checkmate, brother. Now, this is a classic knight sacrifice. Remember the blockers. He's in the corner. You only need 2 blockers, but he has 3, which is fine. It's just a bonus. Well, all we care about are these 2. So, any check on this king, notice this knight on e2 guards g1. So if we can check this king with, say, knight takes f2, rook takes is forced, and guess what? Now his back rank, the 2 blockers tell us to look for back rank checks. Well, here you go. Back rank check, goodbye Charlie. That's what my father would say. Rook takes free rook, checkmate. Okay. Now, what do we got here? Looks like pretty basic stuff. I'm thinking h6 check, followed by, the problem he has is if he goes to g6, rook to f6, forces him away from the h7 and h8 squares, and so we're just going to easily queen. So he couldn't do that. So now we've pushed him back, push him back again. Same story, check. I was just repeating the pattern. That was 2 pawns and a rook against the king because his rook did nothing to defend it. Looks like this guy's going to run into some variation. Oh, a freak, eh? All right. Well, this guy did, I just realized what he did. He's pinned and tries to win my queen. Well, clearly that fails. That's a free bishop. Now we have 2 moves we can play. Queen takes bishop, which doesn't really do anything. We can play pawn takes bishop. The thing is, we're threatening queen checks, followed by rook takes h4. So I want to go pawn takes, and I want to put a skewer on these pieces because I want to check him and win this rook. The thing is, notice we have a queen. When this bishop is gone, our queen and our rook defend this piece. That's two defenders. Pawn takes, he has two attackers. So queen takes rook, rook takes queen, rook takes rook, and guess what? Queen takes rook. When you have two defenders and the opponent has two attackers, the defense wins. So the correct move here is pawn captures bishop. He did the mistake. 2 versus 2, we win. And now we're going to take this with the cheapest one. He attacked it first with a $9 queen. I'm going to use a $5 rook. I just made $4 right here. Now, he took my $5 rook for his $5 rook, so we're good. We still made $4. We have a queen versus rook advantage. Easy win. When I'm playing chess like this, I'm making money. Okay. Yeah, he made just a hideously bad move. Why it's bad, I'm going to show you. His idea is that, haha, queen takes rook check. Guess what? No. That is true, but we have, this has now become a desperado. You take, I take. You take, I take. That's a desperado. The desperado can be interrupted by a move that threatens something else. Check, checkmate. So I can just go, this is what I call, and you want to write this as write this one down, it's a great one. It's called removal of liability. My rook is liable to be captured by his queen if I take his rook. So I'm going to move my rook with check. Rook to c8 check, and now I have no liability with this rook. Now, what I can do, I can threaten, I don't think I have a checkmate here with queen e4 check, but I don't need to. Queen takes free rook. I'm just winning a rook for nothing. I'll just take it. I mean, I looked, I didn't see a checkmate threat, so, whatever. Okay. Now that these are, like I said, this is intermediate to hard. You're starting to see some complicated things. Look at all this stuff that's going on. Knight's attacking this knight. Rook's attacking this knight. I cannot take this with the rook. I sure would love to play rook takes knight check. But this bishop is pinning my freaking rook. All right. Well, guess what? My rook cannot move. This knight cannot move. That means that these pieces do not guard or attack. Rook does not attack queen. This knight does not guard c2. Why is that important? I don't know. You tell me. You see this? Okay, so this is my visualization. So queen checks. He's going to go to f1. If he does, queen to f2 is mate. He's going to, or he can go to f3 and queen to f2 is also checkmate. Goodbye. My visualization. You see this? Checkmate. I call that a connect the dots. Okay, pretty obvious. King cannot take the rook. Now, the one that's going to be the key thing you want to write down about this one is called the shepherd square. And I'm the only guy that teaches it. The shepherd square. We're going to pawn capture rook and check this guy. He's going to have to move. He's going to go king to f2, trying to stop our pawn from queening on e1. The shepherd square for an e-pawn for black is d2 or f2. When your king and pawn endgame occurs, if I can put my king on the shepherd square, which is always going to be on the second rank, this is winning. He cannot stop this pawn. It doesn't matter. Magnus Carlsen cannot help this guy. Because you see that king guards on with the pawn on e3, king guards the pawn on e2, king guards the pawn on e1, queen, and you lose. My next move would be queen to e7, and he's done. Okay, pattern recognition. Blocker, blocker, blocker. Now the bishop is kind of a semi-blocker. He can move, but we can take advantage of his mobility or inability to move depending on the situation. So let's look at this. This pattern that I've taught you says we need to look for a check. Okay. All I'm doing, this is like when you see in sports, when in sports, the phrases that you'll hear is reading the defense. I'm reading the defense. Blocker, blocker, blocker. Rook checks on d8. Rook takes rook. Rook takes rook check. Bishop forced to go to f8. Well, guess what? I can play bishop takes free knight, or I can play bishop to h6 and just checkmate this guy. In the tournament, either one of these is good enough to win. But I'm always looking to get the easiest, quickest, and simplest win. He has no piece. Well, he has one piece that can defend this. You got to be careful. So if I go bishop to h6, he can play the very clever knight to d7. Okay, that's very clever. And now you see his knight is guarding his bishop. His knight is guarding his bishop. And if I take his knight, he takes my bishop. How bogus. So, what do we do with this guy? Ha. We could play bishop takes knight, threatening, yes, well, we threaten an unstoppable. After bishop takes knight, we threaten an unstoppable bishop to d6. Because notice that bishop is taking this knight, preventing escape from the king, or by the king. So the key move is that bishop h6 allows him to play a clever defensive move. This is really a good defensive move because he could trade pieces. So we're going to take this knight, and we're going to win this because there's nothing he can do to stop bishop to d6. Now, in the problem setup, you don't know for sure why it resigned. Bishop takes knight is winning. It's a winning advantage. But the key part is that we had another piece win coming, and I wanted to show it to you because it's very important. Okay, so now what do? We have this is another one of those removal of liabilities, but it's a different kind. We're going to remove the liability by protecting the liability. So what happens here is, look, the move that you would win by is pawn takes free knight, except right now it's not free because queen would take bishop and he's even. However, I can play a check, and these checks can be very annoying because they do certain things. Sometimes they're attack, sometimes they're defense. This is a check for defense. Queen to a8 check defends this bishop by the queen. I don't really have a checkmate threat against this guy, but I can check him with the queen. King h7 is forced, and now pawn takes free knight because guess what? My liability of my hanging bishop is no longer hanging, it's guarded by the queen. Because if I don't do this, he was going to take my bishop. Now, my bishop is guarded. I can play pawn takes free knight. Oh, check. Ooh, what do you want to meddle? I'm like, okay. I go here. Queen e5 check. King g4. See, this is really kind of dumb. Everything I do is good. King e3. Queen c3 check here. I go bishop to e4. It's probably slightly better. I actually have to calculate that trash. That's what's ridiculous. Now, what do we have here? All right. Well, the thing that stands out to my mind here is that I have a pin on his knight on c3. I have two attackers on this knight. So I can't take this and win it because he's got two defenders, queen and bishop. 1, 2, I got 1, 2. I need to add a third attacker or remove a defender. And I can't remove either defender, but I can add an attacker with queen to a5, right? This knight's not moving, brother. Doesn't matter what he does, he cannot defend this again. His king can't come forward because the knight guards it. So, pretty basic to me. Now, if I play knight takes, pawn takes bishop, and, I'm stupid. So bishop takes knight check, bishop takes, queen takes knight, and queen takes bishop check. I'm winning a piece. I'm more than happy to trade queens with you if I'm winning a piece, because the queen is the greatest chance a player has of recovering his lost material. That's a very important concept. So this was just a pinned piece. I could play knight here, but b4 and I got a problem. Now, look at this. I've just won a knight in broad daylight for nothing. Awesome. I won it because it was a pinned piece. Okay, oddball position. You see this king is trapped. I own this square. The ones that are blocked are obvious. Don't worry about those. Don't worry about trivial stuff. King blocks this, pawn blocks this, pawn blocks this. So, any check I make on this king is checkmate. Knight to f3 loses to knight takes free knight. But knight to e4, that's a checkmate, buddy. Whoops, checkmate. All right. Remember my father's rule. Rule number 1. What's he trying to do to me? He's trying to go king h5, king h6, and if he can do it, king h7, shepherd square for this g pawn and push it to victory. It's not going to happen. It takes too long, and I can see it. Anytime he goes to h5, I can cut him off with king to g7. So what I'm going to do is literally just push my pawns and score. So the thing that we have to be aware of, when the pawns are connected like this, the king can never take this. These two guys restrict my king's ability. My king is frozen. He cannot leave this area unless this pawn moves forward, then we kill it. So the threat we have is to make this pawn a passed pawn. If I can play if I play pawn to d3 and he takes it, this pawn cruises to victory. Notice the square of this pawn to queen extends to e4. It's a 4x4. His king's not close. e5, he can go king f4, d3, and now he's toast. He cannot move king e3 because I'm not going to go to d2. I'm going to take him. So I go d3 and he takes it. I push. He's one square short. You see this? d3 wins. I told you I'm not going to push. I'm going to take it. He's outside of the square. Now he'll catch this pawn. Guess what? Now I protect it like he's got his pawns protected. And this is going to be a Zugzwang. I told you if he moves this pawn, I'm going to capture it. And now I win. Oh, by the way, I'm a master and then some on king and pawn endgames, and you just saw it in real life action. Okay, now, here's my dad's rule again. What's he trying to do to me? Notice he's got a double attack on my rook here. And if you say, well, he only has a single attack, queen to here. Remember, line pieces like bishops, rooks, and queens have X-ray abilities. This is an X-ray machine that shoots an attack to E1. He's threatening, E8. Queen takes E8. Queen takes. Rook takes is checkmate. So, I actually could play queen takes free queen because he has nothing. I can play, that's a stupid move. Did he take a piece? Sure did. Took my rook. I guess his idea is rook takes, queen takes rook, and he's even, whatever. But I have the ability to play queen takes queen. His rook attacks my rook, my queen defends my rook. I also could play queen takes rook, but I don't want to because that doesn't gain anything. Yeah, queen takes b5 is just, this is a sidestep move. He probably just missed this. It's a very common mistake. Queen takes queen, he's got no checkmate threats. Rook d8, rook takes free rook. Rook takes, queen takes, he's got nothing. So this is the order of exchange is what got this guy. So I'd write that down. This was the order of exchange. It looks like rook takes rook, queen takes rook, and we're even. Well, order of exchange was more than one. He thought there was only one way to do it. In a speed chess game, this would happen. But I hit him with an order of exchange tactic, and that's queen takes queen, because my queen defends my rook. So we got him with order of exchange. It's a very important tactic. Okay. Got to be careful here. What's going on is okay, this guy's playing a trick. Remember, my dad gave us a superpower. What is he trying to do? The natural move here is king to c6, completely locking this king up. If we do this, he's going to play a4. Problem is, pawn takes pawn, stalemate. Okay, that's very clever. But remember, I told you my father gave me the superpower, and I give the superpower to you by transfer. So by transfer, I'm giving you the superpower. The superpower is this. We know what he's going to do. King c6, a4. Now, we have two choices. We can take this or not take it. But what happens? If we don't take it, can we checkmate this guy? Because when your king is here, and a pawn that goes to b7 is a checkmate. 1, 2, 3, 4 moves to checkmate. We go king c6. He's got a4. We play b4. That's one of the four. And in 3 moves, we checkmate him. Well, he queens. We checkmate him. So his trap, king c6, a4, we're not going to play. And now, in a tournament game, I would give this guy a show. This would be a theatrical show of pawn takes pawn. No, So I'm going to play king c6. He's going to go a4. And in a tournament, I'm going to grab this pawn and look. I'm going to look at it like I'm going to capture his pawn and look at his face. And he's going to look at me, and then I'm going to go b4. So, watch this. Because my dad has given us the superpower, we know we're going to checkmate this guy. He's like, aha, the trap. Stalemate. It looks like I'm going to capture your pawn. Oh, I'm not. There you go. Checkmate. That's a key position that you have to learn, and you just learned it today if you didn't already know it. It's super powerful. Now, you don't use it hardly ever, but what we do with this exercise of writing down these tactical ideas is that this gives us a physical reminder of what we've looked at. And you do this every day, and you're going to get one tiny notch stronger every day. And then a year from now, 365 tiny notches later, you're like, oh, wow. It's like if you start lining up ants in a line, 300 ants would actually make a pretty darn long line. It'd be 6 or 8 or 10 feet or whatever it is. It's longer than you would think. You go, well, ant doesn't take up any room. Chess ability accrues in tiny increments. But if you keep going, they get substantial over time. Now, man, I don't even know what we're doing here. Well, good question. The first gut reaction is rook takes bishop. I don't think it does anything at all, really. Rook captures bishop. So what? Oh, now I see what we're doing. What we have here is what I call a hesitation or a sidestep. It's not obvious at all, as you can tell. This is a 2000 level problem. It'll either be just under 2,000 or just over 2,000. But what we'll do is a sidestep. What is the weakness that he has? It's really not obvious, okay? I'm very strong, and it took me a while to get it. If you don't get it, it's nothing. That's not an insult to you. It's just not obvious. The idea is that our rook attacks his bishop. Remember what I said? My first gut reaction was rook takes bishop. Well, it's pretty close. Those are my spidey senses. My spidey senses was close. Rook takes bishop is important, but not on the first move. What happens is we're going to sidestep guy. We're going to do a setup move. We're going to make a move threatening this rook with the knight so that we can check this guy and double attack his bishop. Knight d5. Wait a second. Yes, maybe. Knight d5. He could go rook to e5, which I don't like. Oh, no, it doesn't matter. He can do it, and that is his best move. Knight d5, rook e5 is his best move. You'll see why, pinning my rook knight to the rook. But I'm going to go knight to e3 check with a double attack on his bishop. So he's forced to play rook takes knight, king takes rook. That's the best he can do because I'm going to sidestep this here. I'm attacking the rook. I gain a move of time. He has to react to my knight move. Otherwise, I take his rook, and I'm going to go here. And even rook to e5, threatening, trying to scare me to not play knight e3 check, I'm still going to play it. Well, that's just terrible. He's still, whatever. Like I said, it wasn't obvious. Now, you remember that previous problem? You don't yet, but when I describe it, you will. Where we had the pin the bishop and the knight, and I moved the queen to pin his knight. It was already pinned, but I amplified the pin by moved my white queen to a4. No, it was a black queen moved to a5, sorry. Well, then it's the same thing here. This knight attacks this knight, guarded by the bishop. So I can play bishop here. He's got one defender. I add a second attacker. So he can play queen to d6, adding a second defender. And then I can play queen to a4, adding a third attacker. He cannot defend this again. He loses. So we're spotting the opportunity to pin this knight because whenever he moved, this knight move he made on knight f6 is a bad move. It's a normal move for this knight, but he misses the idea. We have a pin set up of knight e5. We're threatening. He should have taken this knight, forcing us to recapture, and he's perfectly safe. But he went to sleep, did not realize this is a premature move to set up. Well, this is the move that sets up this bishop pin. Queen d6, like I told you, queen to a4, triple attacking the knight. Bishop takes knight check. Queen takes bishop check. Knight takes queen. Goodbye. Okay. This is, it's pretty basic stuff, actually. Actually, this is super nasty. We can set up two different checkmates here with knight to f2 check. Knight to f2 check wins. This is based off of what is known as the Philidor Mate, which is knight f2 check, king g1, knight h3 double check, queen to g1 when he goes to the corner, rook takes, knight to f2 is a smothered mate. But knight f2 check, he can stop the Philidor's mate with rook takes knight. And then I'll just play queen takes free rook check, and he's dead. So he's gone. You want to go. Queen takes free rook check, I'll take it. Queen takes free bishop check, I'll take that. Queen takes free rook, checkmate. Like I said, it sets up two different checkmates, and I wanted to show you both of those checkmates. Because I don't know specifically what the response he was going to play was. All right, what do we have here? Oh, this is simple. This is called an overloaded defender. So the question I ask you is, which piece do you think is overloaded? And overloaded means it's doing more jobs than it should be doing. So I don't think this one's really very difficult once I've asked you the proper question. Hopefully you're going to say, well, you got a bishop guarding a queen, got a queen guarding a bishop, and a queen guarding a rook. So pretty much the only thing doing two jobs is the queen. The queen is doing two jobs, and it cannot do two jobs. It can only do, every piece can only really do one job at a time. So the thing is, I have a rook attacking a bishop and a queen attacking this rook. Rook takes bishop check. How does he respond? Well, clearly, it doesn't matter what your ability is. Let's say you might be at 800 rating. You would go, well, queen takes rook, and I would say, of course, that's correct. But when he takes this rook that guards his bishop, or takes the rook that took the bishop because the queen was guarding the bishop, the queen is no longer guarding this rook. This doesn't do a lot. This just, gives me a chance to draw the game, basically. Check here doesn't do much, right? Check, he goes into the corner. Yeah, the best I can do, rook takes bishop. Well, that's actually not correct. I have another idea that might work. In fact, I have another idea that does work. I actually have other ideas. Okay, so this is another killer lesson hidden inside of a problem. There's an old phrase that says, when you find a good move, rook takes bishop, working on this overload, which is a good move, and then queen takes. I'm going to end up with queen versus queen, with 2 pawns versus 3 pawns. It's a draw, probably. That's a good move. If you find a good move, let's look for a better one. I said, well, let me look at this. Queen to g8, double attacking this bishop, and he cannot be defended. Now, the problem with that move is that he has the ability to start an unbelievable attack on my king, rook to b2 check, for example, and it's starting to get ugly quick. Or I can, he can play queen to g4 check. So I'm like, that's not good. These are my spidey senses are kicking in. And so I go, well, attacking this bishop with queen to g8, this is not good, and I'm probably going to lose. And then I realized, oh, wait a second. I have queen to f5 check, double attacking the bishop with the check. He cannot play king d8 because queen to d7 is checkmate. So he must go into the corner, and this looked towards the corner, not into it. King to b8, I go, this is a bump and score. This is the check on the unblockable diagonal that I mentioned to you before. So this is the killer. Rook takes free bishop check. Goodbye, Charlie. Thanks for the free queen. Super fantastic. Okay, now what do we got here? I'm going to get this guy. Yes. Pattern recognition is the key. The triple blockers. You only see one blocker here, but notice my pawn acts like another blocker on 2 squares. So he's got 1, 2, 3 block squares. That means we can get him with a back rank. What about, I did see that this combo of rook h8 check wins because it decoys his king to a bad square. I don't have a back rank check. Over here, as you see, this blocks my queen. So we can go rook h8 check, decoys him to the square, the corner square. Then we play queen h2 check, taking advantage of him in the corner, but switching to this diagonal. He'll play king to g8, the only move. Well, okay, he can stick his queen there and we'll just take it. So clearly he's not going to do that. He goes to g8, queen to b8 check. Is now his rook and queen guard 2 different squares. Rook d8, queen takes d8, queen takes free, rook check, queen to e8, queen takes free queen, checkmate. So we're going to decoy this guy right here. Switch diagonals to get, we're now hitting, we're forking this king. We're forking him, the king on h8, and we're forking the checkmating square opening on the back rank at b8. So this is a fork where we're going to fork a piece and a square. You don't see this that often. We wanted this square. We didn't want one of the pieces. We take it if we gives it to us. Queen takes free, rook check, like I told you, and he resigns. Okay, that is the end of section 2. So this was intermediate to hard. After this, it's going to be hard to very hard. So like this video, tell your friends, make sure they see this because it's going to make them stronger. And then when you play them and they're stronger, they're going to help make you even more stronger. That's some good grammar, right? It doesn't matter. You know what I'm getting at. So this is about to be over. I'll see you guys probably in a few seconds when you look at section 3.